All Elite Wrestling's annual Multiverse Melee emanates from the banks of the River Thames. I'm Tom Campbell from Cultaholic Wrestling, and this is what happened at AEW Forbidden Door 2025. 0 Hour opened with Lio Rush and Action Andretti teaming with the Don Callis families Josh Alexander and Hechicero, with Lance Archer in their corner, against the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion El Desperado, Roderick Strong and Kyle O'Reilly, and Yuya Uemura. Some strong tandem offense on show from Crew and Paragon, who work the lion's share of this one. Late into the match, Alexander and Uemura mix it up. This leads to everybody getting involved in and out of the ring, and Action Andretti wiping almost everyone out with a corkscrew dive. It leaves Yuya in the ring to drop Lio Rush with a deadbolt for the win. Crew and the Callis family attack post-match, but Tomohiro Ishii storms slowly to the ring where he and Lance Archer get into it. The Murder Hawk gets a chokeslam blocked, and the Stone Pitbull lands an impressive stalling brainbuster. Kyle, Desperado, and Uemura thank Ishii for the assist, but Roddy pulls Kyle away from the in-ring celebrations. You're my friend now. A fun 8-man tag to start the night. We roll into a 6-man tag with Ricochet and the Gates of Agony against JetSpeed and Michael Oku. Goa get going early, beating down JetSpeed at ringside, but their cockiness sees them get caught with drop kicks to the face and slaps across at least one Baldy Heed. Oku's Fosbury flop attempt sees him pounced out of the ring by Toa. It leads to a prolonged beating for Oku. A hot tag to Kevin Knight turns the tide as JetSpeed get a near fall off a Hurricane Rana powerbomb combo. Oku gets redemption and Fosbury flops Ricochet before landing a frog splash for a very near fall. Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight wipe out the Gates of Agony, and Oku lands a lion salt and locks in the half crab on Ricochet. But Bishop distracts the ref so Ricochet can rake Oku's eyes. From here, the gates open for Oku, leaving him open for Ricochet's Spirit Gun for the win. Our second All-Star Tag match sees Tekla, Sky Blue, and Julia Hart team with Megan Bayne to face Willow Nightingale, Queen Aminata, Harley Cameron, and Kris Statlander. Quadruple baseball slides punctuate an early lead for Team Willow, with Julia taking a pasting until the teamwork of the Triangle of Madness makes the dream work and brings Statlander down to earth. Megan Bayne double slams Willow and Aminata before diving onto bodies outside, leaving Kris isolated. Eventually, Harley Cameron gets her first piece of the action, and the Megasus feels the wrath until she drops a diving Harley to the canvas. A fresh Aminata doesn't have much more success battling Bayne until the Queen counters a tombstone with a Hurricane Rana. Aminata will then brawl up the ramp with Tekla. This match continuing with Harley Cameron once again facing a powerbomb, but using her face mask as a weapon to break it and get a near fall off a satellite DDT. The Triangle attempt to triangulate, but Willow pounces the tar out of Sky Blue outside the ring. A short while later, Bayne finally lands that big powerbomb, running powerbomb style onto Harley Cameron to pick up the 1-2-3 for the baddies. The final match of 0 Hour sees the trios titles on the line. The Opps facing the Bullet Club War Dogs. Shibata's Connors to start before Samoa Joe and Maloney exchange power moves. Robbie X attempts to show off his speed, only to have Joe nonchalantly avoid a dive. Oh, Joe. War Dogs get a look in when Connors drags Shibata outside and throws him into the barricade, whilst Maloney drives Joe into the steel steps. We'll see Powerhouse Hobbs eventually get that hot tag and devour the War Dogs as meat chants rain down. A chop block from Connors sees all three of the Bullet Club War Dogs go to war on Hobbs. A high-low and a corkscrew splash, however, does not keep the big man down. He'll retaliate with a spine buster before tagging in Samoa Joe. The end comes when Gedo attempts to interfere, but gets low-blowed with the ropes for his trouble. Amongst the chaos, Samoa Joe lands a muscle buster onto Robbie X to retain the trio's titles. Forbidden Door opens proper with Adam Copeland and Christian Cage teaming for the first time in over a decade to face Kip Sabian and Killswitch. Cope and Cage start strong on Kip, hitting a double-team inverted DDT before Kip tags Cage's former muscle, Killswitch. Cage looks like he's about to mix it up with Killswitch, but suddenly decides to tag Cope instead. Let him deal with the big angry dinosaur. Switch roughs up Cope until Cope lands a baseball slide. Mama Wayne then gets in Cope's face, which is a ploy for a Kip Sabian sneak attack, which Copeland moves out of the way of, and Kip goes crashing into Killswitch. However, Killswitch catches him and power bombs Kip into Copeland. And from here, we see there's a bit of a communication issue between Kip Sabian and Killswitch. However, they stay in control of the match regardless. Kip was thrown into Copeland by Killswitch at one point, and Kip demanded a tag from Killswitch, which he gave so hard, it seemed to bust Kip Sabian open. I don't know what happened there. Mama Wayne prevents Cope from tagging Cage as Killswitch and Kip attempt a tower superplex onto Copeland, but Copeland turns it round and ends up spearing Kip off of Killswitch's shoulders. Eventually, Christian gets the hot tag and reluctantly locks up with Killswitch. He starts to gain some offense, and at one point he's standing tall, literally and figuratively, on both Killswitch and Kip Sabian. Cope and Cage briefly keep the big lad on the ground with a double educator, but Sabian, who made a sneaky tag just before, gets a roll-up and a 2.99 recurring on Cage. Killswitch goes to chokeslam Cage from the apron, but here's Copeland to spear Killswitch through the ropes instead. In the ring, Kip goes for the unprettier, only to fall victim to some new Cope and Cage tandem offense. A flapjack from Cage into a spear from Copeland. It's super effective, and Kip goes down for the 3. Cope and Cage stand tall as the crowd chant, "Hey Christian, hoo-ha, I want to know, oh, if you'll be my dad." When they calm down, we see a handshake and a reluctant hug. Cope and Cage, the boys are back in town. Next, the AEW TNT title is up for grabs. It's Kyle Fletcher defending against New Japan's Hiromu Takahashi. The challenger has Kyle on the back foot until Fletcher boots the challenger to slow the match way down. Fletch shuts down Takahashi's comebacks, keeping in control with some simple yet very effective body slams. A Hurricane Rana and a Poison Rana to the outside puts Takahashi in the driving seat. Both men exchange explosive offense. A half Nelson suplex from Fletcher, a German suplex from Takahashi, and a Michinoku driver from Fletcher for a near fall. Hiromu stops Kyle from launching off the top, but gets an avalanche victory roll countered into an avalanche back suplex, followed up by a high-angle Liger bomb, both only yielding 2 counts. Fletcher starts laying in the strikes here, but Takahashi laughs them all off as he wobbles around the ring, smiling. A big boot from Fletcher leads to just a 1 count, much to the shock of Fletcher and the 0-2. Fletcher goes for an apron brainbuster, but Takahashi reverses the polarity and follows up with a sunset flip bomb to the floor and a whopper of a lariat in the ring, but it's not keeping Fletch down for 3. Fletcher once more goes for that elevated Liger bomb, but Takahashi counters mid-air with a destroyer for 2. They battle back and forth over a tombstone piledriver. Kyle wins, but his prize is only a 2 count. 2 big running kicks to the corner from the champion. One to the back of Takahashi's head, one to the front. Followed up by a sheer drop brainbuster is what seals Takahashi's fate. Kyle Fletcher retains the TNT title. The Forbidden Door is wide open in the next one as Mercedes Moné puts her TBS title on the line against CMLL's Persephone, AEW's Alex Windsor, and New Japan's Bozilla. Moné has a parade of beef eaters, holding all her various titles as she comes to the ring. Amongst them are TK Cooper and Chuck Mambo. Hi, friends. I didn't know you were booked. Bozilla looks dominant, gorilla pressing Moné over the top and into the other competitors before dropping Persephone and driving driving Windsor into Mercedes. Bo takes herself out when she charges into the corner, and Windsor and Mercedes move out of the way, making this a three-way dance very briefly. But Bo bursts back into the match and double backdrops Persephone and Windsor. Moné monkey flipped into Bozilla, and Persephone and Windsor help bring her down. Moné's attempt to cross-body Bo is fruitless until Windsor cannonballs into them. Persephone lands a dive through the ropes as to not feel left out of all the chaos outside the ring. A series of pin attempts by Persephone, Moné, and Windsor go back and forth until, Bozilla explodes back into the match and bear hug belly-to-belly slams Persephone. A flurry of missile drop kicks and meteoras puts Bo down once again, but she rejoins the action just in time to complete a doomsday superplex with everyone involved. Windsor and Persephone get into it until Mercedes takes them both down with a crucifix pin and a double statement maker, but it gets broken before a tap out. Windsor fires back and puts a double scorpion deathlock on Mercedes and Persephone, with Bozilla reappearing to stop both of them from tapping out by simply standing on their hands. That'll do. Persephone puts Windsor down with a spear before Bozilla chokeslams Windsor and drops them both with a goddamn moonsault, broken up by Moné. A powerbomb by Bozilla gets turned into a reverse Hurricane Rana by Moné, but a power-up by Windsor gets shut down with a German suplex by Bo. Persephone seizes a moment to attack Bozilla from behind, landing an awesome running Razor's Edge. Windsor follows up, taking down Persephone and locking in the Scorpion Deathlock once more, but here's Moné to break it up with a code breaker. Persephone goes for the Razor's Edge once more onto Mercedes Moné, but Moné counters with a pinning combo to get a tight 3 count to retain the championship. Persephone screams in frustration as Moné sits on the ramp, looking very aware that she has snatched victory from the jaws of defeat and a very intense Bozilla. Next is the Battle of Britain for the IWGP Championship. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Nigel McGuinness, with Daniel Garcia as his towel man in the corner. Nigel got ready for this match by playing chess with World of Sport legend Johnny Saint, which is how true champions prepare. This, as you would expect, is solid techers from the off. Very evenly fought until Nigel breaks away with some joint manipulation. Nigel flips the bird to Zack and then flips the switch, taking over with some technicals of his own. However, Sabre Jr. is able to kick Nigel's arm and twist his head to get back into it. Nigel tries for an elbow drop when he gets an opening, but Zack moves, and this comeback is shut down completely. A quick spin out from a headlock gives McGuinness an opportunity, as does a well-placed kick to the back in the corner. Nigel is locked in. He plays to the crowd and catches Sabre Jr. sneaking up on him, only to drop him with a clothesline. Lovely. Nigel attempts to put Zack in the Tower of London, but it's countered, and Nigel's attempt at a Les Kellet lariat gets turned into an armbar by the reigning champ. The referee admonishes Daniel Garcia at this point for grabbing the ropes at ringside. Regardless, Nigel is able to break the hold. Nigel looks spent as he gets up, but he guts it out as the two unload with European uppercuts. This exchange leaves Zack Sabre Jr.'s nose bloodied. We see a pinning combo and ultimately Nigel landing the Les Kellet lariat, but only getting a 2. A ripcord lariat by the challenger also only yields 2. A modified surfboard stretch and a triangle choke keep the challenger in control. Nigel looks to take Zack up top, but Zack turns it into an over-the-rope armbar before getting in Daniel Garcia's face at ringside. Zack goes back up, only to get smashed with the Tower of London. But Zack gets his foot on the ropes. It's only a 2 count. Both men jockey for pins back and forth, but Zack rolls Nigel up and buries it just too deep for Nigel to kick out of, leading to the 3 and a successful title defense for Zack Sabre Jr. Nigel is devastated, having come so close, but Zack gives Nigel all the respect and the two shake hands. Zack even bows to Nigel McGuinness here. Ringside, Daniel Garcia looks visibly upset, and when he gets into the ring, he aggressively hugs Nigel McGuinness. It was a well-fought battle for Nige. Tony Schiavone congratulates the fans on setting the wrestling attendance record at the O2 before we go backstage where Queen Aminata and Tekla are still fighting from 0 hour. They brawl towards the ramp where we see the Triangle of Madness make it a 3-on-1 on Queen Aminata. This leads to the return of Jamie Hayter. She's been out of action for some time in AEW. She charges and helps to send the Triangle packing. A big pop for the return of the UK's Jamie Hayter. The AEW World Tag Team titles up for grabs. The Hurt Syndicate defend against both FTR and Bro Dido. FTR single out Bobby Lashley, while Bro Dido single out Shelton Benjamin. And with the Syndicate hurting, it becomes FTR versus Bro Dido for a little bit. However, the champs will recover. They'll get back into the mix. Bobby and Shelton working over Dax until Bandido gets tagged in. A high-flying flurry from Bandido, but he gets dropped with a flapjack and smashed into the barricade. And then just proceeds to take a shoeing for a long time. FTR refused to tag Bandido, so his punishment continues at the hands of the Hurt Syndicate. Bandido gets denied a tag for the longest time until he lands a desperation springboard corkscrew, giving him an opening to bring Big Bad Brody into the contest. Everybody around Brody gets put on ice as the King does King things, including a tree slam and a double FTR-sized cannonball. The Beefy Boy showdown that we've all been waiting for between Bobby and Brody gets underway from here, with Bobby landing a one-arm spine buster that has zero effect, leading to Brody sending Bobby out of the ring with a clothesline. Shelton gets into it. He starts suplexing anything that moves until he's stopped by a Cash and Brody shatter machine. Cash dives onto the Hurt Syndicate outside the ring, and he gets caught by both members, but Brody King barrels into him to take him down. And then Bandido takes everybody out when he moonsault fall-away slams Dax off the top rope to the gosh darn floor. As the dust settles, two masked individuals appear in jackets and brawl up the ramp with Bobby and Shelton. Stokely Hathaway introduces a steel chair into the ring at this point, and Dax crowns Brody with it as he flies towards him. The masked individuals turn out to be Ricochet and the Gates of Agony, and they battle up the ramp with the champs from here. The end comes when Brody monkey flips Bandido into Dax, and Bandido covers. But the cover kind of gets broken accidentally, and the ref stops the count. Cash gets into the ring, seems to miss his cue to break up the cover, so Bandido just covers Dax again. The ref counts 3, and just like that, we've got new champs. A very messy finish, but a big win for the very popular Bro Dido, who are new AEW World Tag Team Champions. The AEW Unified Championship takes center stage next as Kazuchika Okada defends against Swerve Strickland. There is tension from the off, Okada goading Swerve until Swerve starts swinging. They go outside the ring before long, with Swerve dropping Okada with a somersault dive. Swerve starts limping afterwards, seemingly tweaking his knee on the way down, but he cheers up when he hears the crowd at the O2 singing Swerve's House to the tune of Madness, Our House. Swerve is flipped over the top a short while later, and once again, that bomb knee gives him some issue. It gives Okada a chance to seize control with a baseball slide and a DDT onto the steel steps. Swerve pushes back, both he and Okada exchanging strikes in the center of the ring. Swerve bringing it to a halt by dropping Okada with pay dirt. The fight goes to the top rope, where Swerve lands a backdrop from the very tippity top rope for a near fall. Swerve follows Okada outside the ring, but tweaks his knee once again as he lands on the floor. This gives Okada an opportunity to hit a tombstone pile driver onto the floor of the O2. Okada looks for the Rainmaker, but Swerve blocks it with the house call. An Okada dropkick prevents yet another house call, and Swerve avoids a Rainmaker to land a Swerve stomp. But again, that bad knee slows him down, and by the time he covers, Okada has recovered, and it's only a 2. Okada pushes Swerve off the top rope, and Swerve gets his bad knee caught in the turnbuckle pads. Okada keeps the pressure on with a shin breaker on the top rope, rope. He then lands a drop kick, but Swerve hits a desperation house call. He misses the second one, leaving him wide open for the Rainmaker to make the reign of Okada continue. Post-match, Okada is not done. He puts Swerve's leg between the turnbuckle and the steel stairs before taking a chair to it, seemingly obliterating Swerve's already injured limb. With that, Prince Nana charges down to the ring with a lead pipe to see off Okada. What a guy. As Swerve is helped up by Prince Nana, Okada and Don Callis admire their handiwork from the ramp. But in the ring appears somebody that we haven't seen in some time in AEW, as Wardlow casts a shadow over the ring. The crowd are shocked. Excalibur is shocked. JR sounds indifferent. Wardlow beats the living daylights out of Prince Nana as Swerve helplessly watches on. Security try and restrain Wardlow, but it's not effective, and he smashes through the security guards. Oh, hi there, Shreddy. How you doing? Wardlow then takes his leave, joining the Don Callis family on the ramp. All happy to see him. But we do get a little stare down between Wardlow and Takeshita. That is something that we will be keeping an eye on. It's time to be timeless as the AEW Women's World Champion Toni Storm defends against the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena. Athena officially signs the contract for the world title match in the ring, possibly introducing a significant plot element for later on. We'll see. Toni knocks Athena from the ring, and while she's out there, drops Billy Starks with a Storm Zero just to keep her away from the match for a while. Athena capitalizes on Toni's attention being elsewhere and drops her on the outside. She drives Toni's head multiple times into the ring post. A very aggressive streak on show from the Forever Champion. Athena's hot dogging and grandstanding to the crowd gives Toni an opening. She gets a schoolgirl roll up through the ropes for a 2 count. Toni goes for Storm Zero, but she's been knocked silly and can't execute quick enough, giving Athena another window to get back in control and dance for the crowd as well. A sit-out powerbomb gives Toni time to recover, fighting back with a tornado DDT and a tiger driver. Athena rocks Toni with a knockout strike, but does not get the 3. Billy Starks by this point is hurt, but back on her feet and stalking the ringside area. She jumps on the apron to distract Toni as she ascends to the top rope, leaving her wide open for a Hurricane Rana by Athena and a Liger Bomb for a 2 count. A Kahita clutch variation then drops Toni to the canvas, but she's able to break the submission by putting her foot on the ropes. Toni goes for the chicken wing, but is dumped out the ring and knocked on her backside by a diving Athena. This doesn't end here, though. Athena once again goes for a pile driver on the steel steps like she did on Dynamite, but Toni is able to prevent it and throw Athena into the barricade. Back in the ring, Storm lands a headbutt and a Storm Zero for a very close 2 count. Toni drags Athena towards the center of the ring, Athena pulling the ring apron with her as she goes. Toni then goes for a Storm Zero on the apron. Billy pulls the ring apron to trip Toni as she goes for it. Toni, once again, distracted by Billy Starks, does not see Athena with the O-face off the top rope. Toni Storm, her head is now lying on the apron. Billy goes to hit her with a steel chair to finish this match off. But here's Mina Shirakawa out of nowhere to grab the chair and chase Billy Starks away. We get a series of small packages between the champ and the challenger. This leads to a strike by Athena and another attempt at an O-face, but it's countered into a chicken wing to give Toni Storm the submission victory. The timeless title reign continues. It's time for some cowboy shenanigans. The AEW World title on the line as MJF challenges Hangman Adam Page. The title can change hands on a countout or a disqualification, and it doesn't count as MJF's title opportunity that he won at All In. Page unloads with strikes until the referee intervenes to start this one. He continues the drumming outside the ring as well. All hangers drop in bangers at the start until MJF drives Page headfirst into the ring post. Freeman gets Page back in the ring where he unloads with strikes to the head, and just as Page starts fighting back, we see MJF gouge the eyes. MJF rattles Page with a sudden spike pile driver, but it only gets 2. He is very much in his pomp here. breaking down Page, even biting his head whilst on the top rope. Page returns the favor, biting MJF and landing a top rope clothesline to get back into the fight. Page sends MJF over the top and hits a moonsault to the floor. Back in the ring, Page looks for the buckshot lariat, but MJF collapses on the ropes nearest to Page. Turns out to be a ruse and goes for the heat seeker, but Page throws him off and into the middle of the ring. He leaps for the buckshot, but MJF catches the lariat arm and takes Page down to the salt of the earth. Page rolls through, turns it into a crossface. MJF rolls through, turns it into a headlock. It brings the sequence all the way back to where they started, ending with MJF catapulting Page into the ring and landing a cutter and a package DDT, but only getting two. It's furniture time as MJF brings a table over to the rampway and lays Page on top and ascends the ropes. Page able to get to his feet in time and lands a moonsault to the floor into a tombstone pile driver. Page puts that table that MJF brought with him to good use, dropping him with a dead eye all the way through it. It could have been the end of the night, but MJF was close enough to the ropes to get his foot on them before the 3 count went down. Outside the ring once more, MJF takes a little beat on a steel chair. But as Hangman charges, he maneuvers to drop toehold hangers onto it. MJF, back in control, lands a horrible-looking running tombstone onto Page through the remnants of the table. Maxwell rolls into the ring as the ref starts the count. Page wills himself up and gets back into the ring at 9.99999 recurring. Almost went a bit wrong when he slipped on the table, I think, but I think that added to it. MJF pulling out all the stops here and pulling the turnbuckle pad off. He goes to throw Page into it, but Page reverses him and sends him flying into it instead. Maxwell, a face of claret, looks out on the crowd as they chant, "You deserve it." Page and Freeman swap strikes before knocking each other down with discus punches. Back to their feet, they lobby for a tombstone pile driver, which becomes rolling pin attempt, and a dead eye out of nowhere for a 2 count. MJF reaches into his trunks and pulls out the dynamite diamond ring, trying to rile Page into hitting him with it, getting himself DQ'd and giving the title to MJF. But Page decides to spit in the face of MJF instead. Page goes for the buckshot and nearly strikes the referee by accident, but MJF pushes Page into the ref and the ref goes down anyway. Referee distracted, MJF cheap shots Page and hits a heat seeker. The referee counts 3, but does not see Hangman Page's foot on the ropes. The ref does not call for the bell. MJF thinks he's won the title. At this point, Mark Briscoe attempts to run in to get MJF, but security pull him away. Hello, TK Cooper. Hello, Chuck Mambo. I didn't know you were booked. In all the confusion, the referee gets up, realizes Page's foot was on the ropes, and orders the match to continue. Page goes for a quick buckshot lariat, but MJF counters with an unsuspected low blow and a roll-up, but it only gets 2. MJF leaves the ring and gets his CMLL title and his title match contract. He throws the CMLL title into the ring and the ref removes it. But as he is removing it, MJF jumps into the ring and cracks Page with the contract. A very close near fall follows, but MJF is not done yet. He places the dynamite diamond ring on his finger. He swings for Page, but the referee stops it right in time, removes the ring from MJF's finger, and as he turns his back to place it at ringside, Hangman Page cracks MJF with his title contracts, followed up with a deadeye and a buckshot lariat for the 1, 2, 3. Hangman Page retains the AEW World Championship. He places MJF's title contract onto the chest of the fallen challenger and raises the AEW World title high. There will be another day for these two. I thought when we saw Athena sign her contract in the ring, it was a visual that might lead to some shenanigans regarding MJF's contract in the finish here. I don't think I got the right message there, but it was a wild and woolly semi-main event for Forbidden Door. This brings us to our main event of the evening, the lights-out steel cage match pitting Darby Allin, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kota Ibushi, Kenny Omega, and Will Ospreay against the Young Bucks, Gabe Kidd, and the Death Riders. Ospreay has an almighty video package that shows his story, narrated by his real-life other half, Alex Windsor. Knowing this will be his last appearance for a while, it's bittersweet that he should go out in the main event of the UK pay-per-view. Ospreay is visibly emotional as he walks towards the ring. To lighten the mood, the Young Bucks have had a nightmare with their elaborate entrances since they lost their EVP ship. Tonight, they came to the ring with awful Tron graphics and Hansen's Bop, which was a delightful bit of levity before the horrors that awaited. It's carnage from the bell. We get Tanahashi's air guitar within a couple of seconds of the match starting before it's cut off by Gabe Kidd, leading to an exchange with Gabe Kidd and Ospreay, concluding with a tumbling dive outside. The Golden Lovers and the Young Bucks square up to a huge ovation, Omega and Ibushi taking first blood with mirror moonsaults out of the ring. Amongst the chaos, Darby Allin and Jon Moxley get handcuffed together. Darby gives Claudio a code red, which causes Moxley to bump and flip with him as well, breaking the cuffs as they do. Omega is gifted a trash can, which he tries to moonsault into Gabe Kidd, but Kidd moves and Omega gets winded by his own bin. Matt Jackson introduces a bag to the match. Thumbtacks, maybe? No. Gummy bears, which Nick Jackson gets his head driven into by Tanahashi, and Matt Jackson is forced to swallow by Omega before he gets a powerbomb German suplex combo by the Golden Lovers. The Bucks start wiping people out with a ladder. Darby eats a powerbomb into it and a senton through it. A bloodied Will Ospreay goes to break Moxley's neck with the steel chair, but Gabe Kidd saves him from oblivion and pile drives Will onto his already compromised neck. The Bucks and Claudio put the boots to Omega, and as Claudio swings Kenny, Nick Jackson wipes out Kota Ibushi with a springboard attack to the outside. Ibushi does recover in time to receive super kicks and a TK driver, but Darby Allin breaks up the cover. For his trouble, Claudio hurls Darby out of the ring and into the cage wall. This leaves Tanahashi on his own against the entire opposing team, and for a man with no knees, he holds his own until Moxley drops him with a DDT. Darby becomes the focus here as he is taped to a steel chair, and Jon Moxley drives a fork deep into his ear. Darby responds by spitting in Mox's face before getting slammed, steel chair and all, to the canvas. Barbed wire tables are introduced now, and more tables are stacked up outside the ring. Tanahashi's taken down by the Young Bucks, but Ospreay breaks up the cover and lies on top of Tanahashi, protecting him from further assault. Mox goes to paradigm shift Will Ospreay, but Will drives him back first into the barbed wire board. And with that, Kenny Omega comes alive and clears house on the Bucks and Gabe Kidd. It leads to the Golden Lovers hitting dragon suplexes on Matt Jackson and Jon Moxley simultaneously, and then Omega landing the Terminator dive to the outside. Tanahashi is now seen climbing up a ladder at ringside, but Will Ospreay and Kota Ibushi talk him out of it. Will insists that he'll be the one that goes up top, and he does. He ascends the cage and hits a moonsault onto everybody. Well, not everybody, as Gabe Kidd and Kenny Omega have a showdown in the center of the ring from here. Both men lay strikes on one another for a good long while, Omega eventually taking Kidd down with running knees, only to get invited to a super kick party by the Young Bucks. Ospreay, now supercharged, wipes out the Young Bucks with running elbows and lands a styled clash on Gabe Kidd. Together, he and Omega hit a combo V-trigger hidden blade, but the Death Riders break up the cover. Omega and Moxley stand tall, with both men hitting running clotheslines at one another until Omega lands a couple of V-triggers and the one-winged angel, which is barely broken up by Claudio and Nick Jackson. Outside the ring, Wheeler Yuta is ascending the steel cage. Darby goes up to meet him and lands a barrage of punches that send Yuta crashing down onto the announce table. Darby is now outside the cage to brawl with Jon Moxley a bit more, and he concocts a plan to put Moxley through the stacked up tables outside the ring. But Marina Shafir is there to save Mox from his doom, and Gabe Kidd is up top of the cage to meet Darby. Darby's clawing at Gabe's face to stop him from choking him out. Both men end up going off the side and through the stacked up tables. Thank you and good night. The home stretch sees the Young Bucks alone with the opposing team. Golden Trigger to Nick Jackson. A one-winged hidden blade. Angel to Matt Jackson, and Tanahashi ascends to the top rope and land the high fly flow onto Matt Jackson for the 1, 2, 3. Will Ospreay stands alone in the ring after celebrating with his teammates, and it looks as if we're going to sign off with Will Ospreay waving farewell to his home crowd in the UK. However, as Will is leaving the ring, Claudio strikes Will Ospreay. Mox and Claudio are still in the cage. Marina Shafir locks the cage door, and Will is suddenly alone in the cage with two of the Death Riders, and he is beaten into oblivion. His team cannot get in there. They just have to watch helplessly as Ospreay gets a shoe-in. Claudio places a steel chair over Ospreay's neck, and we fear the worst. The Opps rush to the ring, but it's too late as Mox lands the killer blow and crushes Will's neck within the steel chair. Eventually, the cage is lifted and the Death Riders scurry away through the crowd. We go off air with Will Ospreay not moving a muscle, surrounded by his teammates and medical personnel. So that was AEW Forbidden Door. Let us know what you thought in the comments down below. I'm Tom Campbell from Cultaholic Wrestling. Stay safe and love you. Bye.